In a world where a comet causes a cataclysmic catastrophe, two tenacious teenagers team up to thwart zealous zombies and sinister scientists. Femininity in the post-apocalypse.
How's it going, my sassy survivors of solitude? You're listening to Femininity in the Post-Apocalypse, a feminist exploration of dystopian media. I'm your host, Klaire Lockheart. I'm an artist who specializes in painting dudes in man caves, but I occasionally emerge from my isolated studio to chat about end-of-the-world movies with the most incredible people I know. I've been in an 80s kind of mood this season, which is why we're going to examine Night of the Comet from 1984. We'll cover the plot before we dive into the discussion, and then we'll rate the film using the Maenad-O-Meter. After that, I'll introduce you to the latest recipient of the Honorary Doctor of Dystopian Studies degree from the Unaccredited College of Klaire. My friends, I'm happy you're listening because you get to meet my guest today, Sarah Isak-Goode, who is an amazing freelance writer who focuses on art history and culture. I'm a fan of Sarah's work, and I'm not just saying that because I was featured in 2 articles she wrote where I confess that I may or may not be a time traveler.
I was trying to be quiet. That's so cute.
It's really easy to connect with Sarah's writing because she excels at finding the heart of the person or the artwork she covers. She shares her work on Medium, including her online publication called The Degenerate Review. Furthermore, I recently learned that she has ties to Second City, which would explain her delightful sense of humor, which you have to experience for yourself. I'm going to direct you wonderful people listening to find Sarah on Instagram by searching for S. Isak-Goode, which is spelled S.Isak_Goode. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me.
Woohoo! I'm so excited, Klaire. Thank you for having me.
I'm pleased you could be here today, but why don't you share with our friends listening some of your latest adventures or endeavors?
Ooh, all of my adventures these days are of a cerebral endeavors. And I'm really excited about it because I've been working full time as a writer now and delving into politics and history and working with musicians. I am all over the place, and it's going to be hard to avoid me at some point here. People are going to see my writing everywhere.
Oh, well, that's great because you are wonderful at your job, and it makes me happy that more people will get to read what you create.
Thank you.
Sarah, I'm also glad that you were able to watch Night of the Comet so we could discuss it together. But first, could you tell us what you thought of this movie when you first encountered it?
Ooh, my first impression was, wow, this is a B movie. I love B movies, and I love B movies from the 80s. And I don't think that you and I had even discussed that. So when this came up, it felt just perfect that it worked out, that I could watch this and really get into it. So I do have a lot of experience with these kinds of movies. I had a best friend when I was growing up whose parents owned a video store, which the younger people would think of a way to watch movies, but you had to walk into a store, get the Netflix, and then bring it home with you. Yeah. So anyway, just for your younger audience, trying to explain what a video store is. So yeah, her family owned one. And so we watched all sorts of movies that probably I shouldn't have been watching growing up, but I did anyway. Was not exposed to this one, but it was right up that alley of horror and kitsch, and just loved it. And I loved breaking it down in the ways that I didn't like it as well, by the way.
Well, this movie was recommended to me by Jamie Waters, who is part of the Dystopian Studies Department at the Unaccredited College of Klaire. When I asked her what beverage I should pair with it, she suggested an icy because it's a classic movie theater drink. I honestly didn't know if I could get an icy where I live, but I wanted to try. The first place I stopped had a generic frozen drink machine, but it was broken.
Oh.
And I did find, though, a gas station that had a working icy machine. And it was just perfect because when I was on this adventure trying to acquire this beverage, the thermometer in the car said it was literally 99 degrees outside.
Oh my goodness. Yay for ices then.
I know, it was great.
Perfect timing.
Sarah, what did you have to drink when you last watched this film?
I have to say, I wasn't as exciting as you. I had beer. I'm a Midwestern girl who also lives in Bend, Oregon, which is a hub of microbreweries. So, beer. I feel like this movie, though, other than an icy, I would actually recommend something like an Old Milwaukee or a PBR.
Yeah.
It's so classic American.
Well, speaking of beverages, I want to mention that the Maenads from ancient Greek mythology were known for drinking with their friends and having a good time, which is why we will rate this movie on the Maenad-O-Meter after our discussion. But first, I'm going to summarize the plot of this movie. Sarah, I'm inviting you to jump in at any time while I cover the synopsis of Night of the Comet.
I'm ready. I'm excited. Let's do this.
In a world where a comet could cause calamity, a capital letter red font on a black background introduces the movie as peak 80s 80s-ness. A voiceover guy with dramatic timbre takes the audience back to before recorded time to introduce Night of the Comet. He reminds his viewers of a dinosaur killing catastrophe. The music changes to upbeat generic 80s music, but the tone remains the same. The main character is introduced high heels first, and then the camera slowly pans up her body, but fortunately, she is fully dressed, so it feels like the first movie trope has been thwarted.
Indeed.
The protagonist is dressed in a cinema usher costume, and she's playing an arcade video game, but she's upset because someone with the initials DMK displaced her initials, filling the high scores screen. Her boss, an older man who is selling alien antenna headbands to commemorate the impending comet, immediately calls her by her name, which is Regina, and this film earns a second point. Many screenwriters forget to include women at all, and they also forget to give those feminine characters names. If a dude named Tom could figure out how to do this in the 80s, I don't know what excuse contemporary writers have.
And I also really appreciated that her whole look and her name were a little bit more offbeat for the 80s, especially. Although that gets thrown out a little bit later.
Anyway, the two of them exchange some antagonistic yet friendly banter. The boss instructs Regina to walk through the movie theater, but she doesn't want to because patrons pelt her with dots and milk duds. Dr. Corey Luna, who is part of the Unaccredited College of Klaire, shared Regina's quote, "Those things hurt." Have you ever been beamed with candy before?
No, but now I have something to look forward to if I ever just start wandering around a dark theater, I suppose.
Regina heads to the projection booth to talk to her creepy boyfriend. She then calls her little sister Samantha, who is dressed in aerobic gear that is only 66.66% of the primary colors. Reggie asks her sister to tell a fib to their stepmom, Doris, so she can stay out all night. We're only a few minutes in, and I'm absolutely shocked how quickly this movie passed the Bechdel test.
Tell us more about that.
Being able to witness a movie clearly pass this very low bar was a lot nicer than trying to look up to see if I missed a pass only to find an online discussion plagued by fanboys screaming at each other on the internet to argue that Ghostbusters technically passed the Bechdel test because Sigourney Weaver and the secretary exchanged 2 lines of dialogue that isn't explicitly about a man, even though they're clearly talking about the Ghostbusters, who are all men. It's just that pronouns weren't used. But anyway, I digress.
I like that. Thank you.
Doris gets on the phone and she isn't having it, despite Regina explaining that she is 18.
Mm-hmm.
Doris and Samantha then bicker because Samantha doesn't like being bossed around, nor does she like that Doris is having an affair with a man named Chuck. Samantha states, "You were born with an asshole, Doris. You don't need Chuck." While I would have high-fived Sam for delivering the best line of the movie, Doris slaps her. Samantha slaps her back, and Doris cleans her clock with a punch to the face. I wasn't quite sure how to take the violence. I'm assuming it was supposed to be like Three Stooges slapstick-ish.
Yeah, it did not feel slapstick to me. I felt a little jarred by it, quite honestly.
Yeah.
But violence is a real thing. The fact that it happened between a stepmother and the stepdaughter was a little bit rare. I feel like you don't often see that kind of violence happening. That was an interesting little thing that they added into the storyline, I felt.
Mm-hmm. Everyone goes outside to watch the comet, but something is amiss. A red grad filter covers the camera lens to make the sky appear red. The movie becomes an episode of The Twilight Zone because all the sets are devoid of people. Finally, the camera reveals that only clothing remains with human-shaped piles of orange sand. Reggie wakes up in the projection room as her jerk-faced boyfriend complains about someone not returning a film on time. He refuses to buy her breakfast and won't give her the money he owes her. He leaves, yells a little more, only to be clobbered by a zombie.
He was gross, and I felt like he was still a relatable character to this day because men like that still exist. So that was an accurate portrayal. I think it fit in with the fact that Regina, she kept wanting to have this sleepover with her boyfriend, but it was so, they're in the movie theater on the floor. She wakes up on the floor. So I felt that Reggie really needed to have more self-confidence and believe in herself.
Mm-hmm.
That was my opinion. Watching that, it felt sad.
Yeah.
But then he leaves. And I was no longer sad.
After eating a breakfast of popcorn and Twizzlers, Reggie plays a little more Galaga to regain her initial dominance on the video games leaderboard. Mm-hmm. Have you had breakfasts like that before?
Never. But seems like a classic teenage breakfast. Have you?
Well, I definitely have eaten Twizzlers that were left over from a movie theater the night before at breakfast time. And I'm not a teenager anymore, but I don't want to tell you how recently I've done that. Back to the movie. While I've been fully on board with everything that's going on in the film so far, the writer revealed that he didn't understand how rankings on arcade games work. You can't just earn 6th place and replace the previous person. She would have had to earn a score higher than the previous 6th place person and then play several more times to push those invasive initials off the screen. But I'm getting distracted. Sarah, do you have a favorite arcade game?
Yeah, I don't love video games, but I have to say one thing that I really love is pinball.
Oh.
Because I played that as a really, really little kid in the early 80s, and I thought it was really, really fun.
Oh, pinball is a blast. I love the older sets too, but I most recently played a really great old Simpsons one. It was delightful. Regina goes outside to look for her boyfriend, but she accidentally locks herself out of the theater when the trash bin she propped the door open with slips out of place, thus making her incredibly relatable because who hasn't had a door jam slip out of place at work?
I've locked myself out of everything.
Oh, no.
The most embarrassing is that I have a tendency actually to lock myself out of my own car frequently, to the point where I now have a kind of car insurance that will just come and get me. It's part of the fee.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I relate to that. Absolutely.
Regina discovers her boyfriend's keys and picks up the bloody wrench that the zombie used as a murder weapon. The monster takes a break from eating the dillweed boyfriend to threaten Regina. At first, she thinks he's dressed for Halloween and warns him not to come near. He attacks her, but she fights back, hops on her motorcycle, and flees. She notices that there isn't any traffic and encounters only one empty vehicle parked at a stoplight. The car's radio plays Chekhov's Christmas song.
Mhm.
She drives around piles of clothes while being filmed through that tropical sunset filter.
I loved the filter on this. It
Yeah.
made the movie for me.
I am such a sucker for practical effects, and I think that might be why I've really been enjoying 1980s movies, especially ones with lower budgets, because the creative problem solving that goes into it.
Yeah, it's really unique. Absolutely.
Reggie returns home, and a spotlight with a red gel pours in through the windows. Samantha is dressed in a blue and magenta cheerleading outfit, and her sweater cost $80. I've never paid that much for a sweater in my life.
That's a higher price now.
Yeah.
So I was trying to do the math on that when I was watching it, thinking, what would that even be in the 80s? Like a $200 sweater?
Yeah, I looked it up on an inflation calculator and it said about $250.
Huh.
I don't even think all my sweaters combined are $250. Anyway, Sam is oblivious to the massive tragedy because she's upset about doors hitting her in the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
She reveals that she spent the night in a shed to make her stepmother think she ran away before she notices the empty dog leash. Reggie takes her sister outside to show her everyone is gone. It's just clothes. She lifts up a dress and exclaims that this is Doris, but no underwear tumble out. She picks up a shoe and says that it's Chuck, but Chuck wasn't wearing socks, so he deserved to die.
I know it was supposed to be incredibly dramatic and intense, but it just made me smile. It was just so over the top that there were just these laid out pieces of clothing, like all of the people were little cartoons that had just kind of disappeared. And then they were just dust.
Yeah.
Just piles of clothing and dust. I got it. I saw what they were doing with it. I know they were trying to be powerful. So I respect that.
The siblings both notice that the DJ on the radio is speaking, and so they head to the radio station. Unfortunately, they discover that the broadcast was pre-recorded. Suddenly, a man with leather gloves and a cool hairdo threatens the sisters with a gun. He wants to check their eyes to assure they're not zombies, and then he tells a harrowing tale about how his traveling companion ran away and was torn apart by the undead. Reggie realizes that her idiot boyfriend is dead, so she excuses herself to yak.
She hangs out with this man who we come to learn as Hector, and they immediately connect with one another on a pretty deep level for people who are in their late teens, early 20s, I want to say. I'm thinking that is the trauma speaking. So I felt like that made sense. That was a very astute way to write that into the script.
Yeah. The gun-toting new character who introduces himself as Hector to Reggie through the bathroom door. And he proposes that they should get along because it's the end of the world. Reggie shares that Sam believes their dad will show up to save them. Hector reveals that he spent the night in the back of his truck with and the script uses the term girl he picked up before she was ripped to shreds. I don't know. I always find that annoying when we refer to adult women as girls. Anyway, Reggie realizes that the only survivors were protected by steel enclosures, and then she critiques the man's tiny gun. Samantha figures out how to overtake the radio broadcast. She's a great DJ and reports, the legal driving age is now 10, but you will need ID. Let's be real. Someone calls the station after she announces the phone number, but the phone dies, and she does her best to recall the conversation. She relays that there's a bunker of scientists who warned them to be aware of the people on the street who are exposed to the comet because they're dangerous. After the sun sets, we cut to Sam drinking and driving in a sparkly gown. I mean, she's wearing a sparkly gown, but she's driving a car.
Yeah, she's not driving a sparkly gown, although that would have been maybe a pretty great visual. I like that.
Anyway, the police pull her over and she goes through teenage panic of getting in trouble, but the officers are zombies. The ghouls claw through the windows to grab and grope her. Fortunately, it was just a nightmare. After waking, Sam enters a bathroom designed by Lisa Frank and removes her clothes to tick the 80s checkbox of requiring at least one nude young woman. But before she can get fully undressed, the creepy cop attacks her again. Sam wakes up from the dream within a dream, and her older sister comforts her.
That part was very 80s with the scenes in the underwear.
Yeah.
It was not my favorite.
I'm relieved that she wasn't totally topless, considering she is supposed to be under 18. And
Right.
It's kind of odd, though, that the literal child character is the one that keeps getting undressed and all the violence is happening to her.
Or is it odd? Or was it on purpose?
Yeah.
In some level. Yeah.
The dude then tells Reggie he needs to travel to San Diego to see if his mom and sister are okay. Reggie shares that her dad was 3rd Special Forces in Vietnam. When their dad couldn't hide his disappointment that his daughters weren't boys, he married Doris so she could watch the kids and he could bail. To entice Hector to return, Reggie will give him Florida and Texas. In exchange, he offers to take her to dinner.
Such a great exchange, isn't it? I mean, I feel like I would love a dinner in exchange for states.
Mm-hmm. I don't think I want Texas nor Florida, but
yeah. Yeah, that is one of the many reasons that this movie, while it does stand out as having some differences in not being entirely, what is the word I'm looking for? I want to say anti-feminist. I feel that there are definitely moments of it. And so, the fact that we have these characters who are smart young women, but then they sell out for certain things, kind of bothers me.
Samantha, still wearing her Rebels cheerleading outfit, practices shooting a MAC-10 at an abandoned vehicle and complains that their dad would have gotten them Uzis. Reggie states the car didn't know the difference. Mm-hmm. Sam yells at Reggie for stealing the last man in the whole world, and I was nervous for a moment about where this movie was headed, but the sisters laugh and another trope was averted.
Averted. It wasn't left out. It was hinted at, don't you think there? It was like it wanted to start it, but it stopped kind of thing.
Yeah, it felt to me that they felt they were required to fight over Hector. And
Yeah.
then we're like, we're sisters, whatever.
Yeah, but it felt like it got put into the movie in this storyline because that's part of the expectation is that, of course, women are going to fight over the last man on Earth. So it was averted in the way that it stopped, the fighting stopped, but it was brought up to begin with, which I thought was interesting. So they could have just, in writing the story, it could have just been left out, right?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if it was critiquing a trope that was already present and in existence in the 80s, or if it was a studio note. Well, they have to fight over the man. And then okay, fine, they'll fight over the man, but not really.
Oh, yeah, that's a really good point. Because, yeah, to me, it seemed like a classic storyline that, of course, 2 women will fight over the one man. That I just think that is pervasive in storylines like this. So, yeah. Interesting, but it was averted, yes.
Meanwhile, Hector drives to his mom's house, which is covered in that red filter as a Navidad record finishes playing. He begins to pack a few family photos, but he hears growling at the front door. He opens it to reveal a wretched zombie child. He exclaims, "We don't want any!" and slams the door in the beast's face. The petite goblin attacks as Hector flees the house. Elsewhere, the bunker scientist is smoking and documents that she's suffering from memory loss. She also has leg warmers. A man asks about blood testing, but this woman thinks inviting outsiders into their underground facility is a bad idea. A helicopter drops off a couple children clad in pajamas as the rotors drown out the scientists arguing.
This part took a turn for me that I was not expecting. I felt that the movie was going to be just following the sisters around fighting zombies in this apocalyptic world. And then it shifted into this. And I thought, well, this is way more interesting now. We have this whole other dynamic happening. So I really liked that part. The female character, the scientist who was smoking, I really liked her too.
Yeah. The siblings sit on the hood of a cop car, and Reggie teases Sam about drinking soda because it's bad for her skin, especially since their dermatologist is dead. Sam reveals she's getting a rash. She then fights back tears as she speaks about all her friends who are now gone. To cheer up her little sister, Reggie takes her on a girls just want to have fun makeover montage at the mall.
Yeah. This part, while it's really sweet, I think, in some ways, right? I mean, let's just be honest here, even though it's not feminist to have this girls want to have fun makeup makeover, putting on cutesy outfits, and the end of the world montage. It also doesn't have to be anti-feminist to do something like that.
Yeah.
I realize I'm overthinking it, but it's just the big sister looking out for the little sister. And we see right from the beginning that she's a young woman, cheerleader. She's a bit materialistic. We hear about her sweater cost, right? So the older sister is really looking out for her. It still bothered me, though.
Yeah.
On some level that I was like, we're not doing anything other than going to a mall. We have to fit that in. It rubbed me the wrong way in this part.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was trying to be at least slightly subversive of the trope of, oh, we have teenagers, they're trying on clothes, because it's happening in an apocalyptic context. So I thought that was kind of funny, but I also am unsure of when that fashion show montage really became solidified, particularly in movies aimed at young women audiences, because this was made in the 1980s, and I'm not familiar with like regular girl movies, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that's a really excellent point, because I'm not either. I just grew up liking and watching what I wanted to watch. So I would say that the movies that I enjoyed were not always typical girl movies, so I can't really speak to that myself. Yeah, so I actually had a lot to say about this upcoming section that you're talking about, so I might interrupt again.
Oh, go for it. The next thing I need to share is that Sam asks, what if Hector is gay, and drops a slur, which definitely did not age well. Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
A security camera pans toward them and reveals that 4 nefarious stock boys with guns are watching them. They decide to attack. A bad guy cuts the lights as the music switches to something slightly more menacing. Regina shoots out the security camera, but the man on the intercom instructs his henchmen to get her. Sam pelts their enemies with high-heeled shoes.
Yeah, I don't know how Regina learned how to shoot guns so well. So if her dad wasn't around and present that often, even if he had been somebody who shot guns, and even if he had trained them a little bit, like, she's just such an amazing shot.
Yeah.
So I felt like that, okay, this is something where I get really strange about movies, where it can be super outlandish and I'll have to nitpick it. Well, is that actually realistic? Like, would she actually have known how to use guns really well by the age of 18 and been such an incredible shot? And it's like, I don't know. It's maybe not so necessary to do that, but
I always wonder where my wheeling suspension of disbelief ends when watching a movie. And in this scene, Regina is shooting at them until she runs out of bullets. So I would argue that the movie is actually slightly realistic because she didn't have unlimited ammunition.
Oh, that's a good point. Yes. Oh, yeah. There we go. Yeah. The thing with the men coming along, they were quite creepy. I just wanted to point that out. I was actually expecting a lot worse once they showed up.
Sam drops a TV on a couple of the foes and knees another guy in the groin, but two of the antagonists capture her. So Regina takes a dopey man hostage. The main villain shoots his own guy so he can abduct Regina too. In another scene, the scientists go to the radio station but can't find the survivors. Meanwhile, the bad guy has chained up the sisters. He removes his sunglasses to reveal he is beginning to zombify. Before the villains can shoot the sisters, the scientists in jumpsuits arrive just in time to riddle the evildoers with bullets.
I had something that I loved here and I wrote it down, and I felt like this was a wildly redeeming quality for the movie that I already enjoyed, by the way, but also had some flaws. When they arrive at the mall, one of the scientists says, "This is a monument to consumerism." And I thought, yes. So how much of this movie is actually about consumerism? And I think it would be quite fascinating to watch the movie from just that lens. Interesting.
Yeah, next time I watch it, I'll have to check it for that, because this time when I was watching it, it was definitely for that intersectional feminist lens.
Right.
The scientists escort Regina out with a helicopter. And the man scientist thinks that Samantha is itchy because she is mutating and declares they should leave her behind without even checking her blood test. So, Dr. Legwarmers volunteers to stay... I missed her name if she was given one. Do you recall if she had
It
one?
was given a name, and I don't recall it either, but I love Dr. Legwarmers. That's fantastic.
So Dr. Legwarmers volunteers to stay behind to take care of Sam. She injects the teenager with something to render her unconscious as the man scientist watches. The contrarian scientist with cozy ankles argues with the man and then shoots him because he's infected.
This part was interesting. I noticed that Sam here was now wearing red, white, and blue.
Oh, yes, after all the changes.
Yeah, and I thought that was just an interesting point. There are many times throughout this movie that we see visual commentary regarding the American culture, and I thought that could not have been unintentional. So I thought that was really interesting point
Thank
there.
you for pointing that out. Next, a fancy car barrels down the street, and it's driven by Santa.
So I feel like the movie got really juicy for me in all of these scenes. Now, once the scientists show up, it just gets so much more interesting to me. What I felt like is, have you heard how people talk about Die Hard as a Christmas movie, like a cult Christmas classic?
It's my favorite Christmas movie.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. And I was thinking, why is this not on anyone's Christmas radar?
Oh yeah.
It's as much a Christmas movie as Die Hard, and certainly very, very strange. So I vote that somehow it gets moved into that cult classic Christmas movie genre.
That never even occurred to me. Oh, it's perfect though. Now, wearing a terrible beard, Hector returns to the radio station with gifts for his new friends. Dr. Legwarmers provides exposition to explain that all the bunker scientists were exposed to the comet through the vents before she drifts off to death from the injection she gave herself. A man scientist questions Regina about her medical history and asks her if she is pregnant. She said that she thought she was once, but the man dismisses it and says that's not important, and she snarks, "That's what you'd think."
I really liked that part. It was pretty realistic. I felt like perhaps a female scriptwriter wrote that line. I could totally have that wrong, but I felt like that was on point.
Mm-hmm. The scientists plan to drain the survivors of their blood to create a serum. They are exsanguinating 2 brain-dead adult victims, and they plan to drain the children next. The Inquisitor scientist puts on sunglasses and tells Regina that her sister is dead before he exits the room to yell at another man. A different bland white man enters the interrogation room to chastise Regina for tipping over a computer. It was a ruse, and she bludgeons him with a massive 80s keyboard.
you're gonna bludgeon someone in the 80s, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
use like a keyboard or a boombox, right?
Right, the huge technology.
Yes.
After another costume change, Hector shows up to the science bunker dressed as a cowboy.
A cowboy. I loved that part too. So this is the stuff I was noticing. So the cowboy, you can't deny that one. That's very, well, now I'm a classic American man showing up to save the day kind of thing.
I think another reason the costume change montage that the sisters had didn't bother me so much is because Hector has so many wild costume changes too. And I don't know if that was supposed to be like an equality thing or if the actor just wanted clips from this movie to put in his reel so it looked like he was in 3 different movies. Look at the range on him. He can be a cowboy, he can be Santa.
He did use an accent. So, yeah, he did have quite the range. Good for him. Yep. Oh, my goodness.
He lures the guard to check out his cool car, and he uses Sam as bait, who springs to life and attacks the guard.
Yay, Sam!
Yes! She has been in a lot of physical fights, but she's always fighting back, and Regina is always fighting back too, which is usually not something I get to see in a lot of movies.
You know, that's a really great point because I think in a lot of ways I was picking at this movie and finding some negative things about it. And even though, of course, like I said, I really did enjoy it, there were things that bothered me, but then the females do fight back. And that does not happen in a lot of 80s movies. I would say it's pretty rare because females in the 80s were still these weak, demure characters. And if they weren't demure, they were probably really ugly and unlovable kind of. And I say that not in my own beliefs, but like in a tongue-in-cheek kind of way, like that somebody else believed.
Even today, if there are characters that are feminine that do fight, they always have to have woman versus woman. It's really rare to see a young teenage girl beating the crap out of an adult man.
Yeah, good on you for noticing that. Now I feel like I want to go on a hunt to just find those kinds of movies, and I can't think of anything. There's got to be one.
I hope so.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Reggie runs around the bunker as Casio keyboard music warbles at us. There are a lot of black shadows, green smoke, plus blue and magenta lights. And I was wondering, did a competent comic book artist create the storyboard?
Yeah, I really, again, coming back to the use of lighting and things like that, I really enjoyed it. As somebody who loves the visual arts, to me, it was very painterly. Even though the effects weren't fantastic, they certainly weren't cutting edge by any means. I saw what the filmmaker was doing. I saw what their intentions were, and I enjoyed that.
Oh yeah, having the lighting and then the composition of how things were framed and the dramatic shadows. I thought that was really successful.
Yeah, I did too.
A heartbeat upstages the keyboard noodling as Regina discovers the evil lab where the scientists are stealing the blood of the innocent. A brunette scientist slaps Regina and removes her from the lab.
More slapping. Lots of slapping in the 80s.
Yeah. Hector plants dynamite as Sam breaks into the grounds. A pair of mad scientists begin the process to harvest the blood of the children, but the sisters save them. The kids introduce themselves to Aunt Sam, Aunt Reg, and Uncle Hector. The scientists, who are transmogrifying into flesh-eating creatures, threaten them, but Hector flips them the bird as they explode. Yeah, you're right. It is a Christmas movie. There are explosions.
And it's appropriate for New Year.
Yeah. Fortunately, the explosion kills the country music soundtrack along with the evil scientist.
Yes.
A mutant grabs the little girl they just rescued, but Hector shoots the attacker as Sam consoles her. It rains, / an off-camera hose washes all the ashes and clothes of the dearly departed down the drains. Reggie had the 2 children dress up so she can take photos with her Polaroid camera. The girl asks for a gun.
Yeah.
Sam, who is dressed for the beach, criticizes Reggie's family for looking like the Brady Bunch. The sisters argue about crossing the street before the crosswalk light changes. Just as Sam crosses the street against the light, a young man in a fancy car peels through the intersection to prove that the older sister was correct. Even though his initials match the video game initials at the start of the movie, the two teens immediately fall in love. The new couple drives off as Regina and Hector fulfill the stereotypical American expectation of being married and having 2 kids. Credits roll. Sarah, do you know what else fulfills a predictable American expectation?
What?
Capitalism. Let's take a break for ads. This show is brought to you by the Unaccredited College of Klaire. Find me at patreon.com/Klaire Lockheart unless you want me to start running regular ads, and then you'll be forced to stop what you're doing to fast forward through the commercials. Head to patreon.com/KLAIRELOCKHEART or else. Welcome back to the show, my friends. Before we begin our discussion, I want to remind everyone listening that the goal of femininity in the post-apocalypse is to examine dystopian media with an intersectional feminist lens. I'm particularly interested in the representation of people of marginalized genders because women and girls are often missing from doomsday stories or they're treated terribly. I also want to remind everyone that it is okay if our reactions differ because discussing the media we consume is part of the fun. We get to learn about how we interpret the work and share how it impacts us. Sarah, you're so good at examining culture, which is why I would love to hear your thoughts on the American Girl stereotype.
Whew. So I felt actually that there were 2 American Girl stereotypes that were present in this movie. And the first one that I would like to talk about is the most obvious one, which is the younger sister, Samantha. She fits a classic American Girl stereotype with the blonde hair, the blue eyes, which is commonly seen, I mean, even to this day. Then we have her being a cheerleader, being super perky and cheerful and into her school events. No doubt she loves her daddy, and she's got the American flag hanging in her bedroom. If I wanted to break it down further, I would even wonder if the angst that she had toward her stepmother might have been some sort of strange Freudian thing that I don't want to get into. And so she fit that American Girl stereotype to me. And we see that, yes, she does fight back. And there are things where she breaks away as a character from this stereotype. But I felt that overall she fit that, in my opinion, even right up to the end. And so at the end of the movie, when she takes off in the car, and so she looks at this blonde, probably blue-eyed male driving a sports car. So he's kind of the classic American boy, right? Mm-hmm. So the American boy and the American girl, they meet and they instantly lock eyes and they take off. Again, she's wearing a red, white, and blue outfit, which I thought was very purposeful. Mm-hmm. We have that, and they're probably heading off to create the future Americans. Then I actually felt that Regina was another trope, which I think could be argued the other way. But I felt that she actually fit the girl next door, what a lot of males would like to have as their girlfriend kind of character. So maybe she is an American girl next door. She's smart. We learn she's kind of nerdy because she's into video games, right? She doesn't seem to care about the things that her younger sister cares about. I would guess in the 80s, like a babe or something, she's not, they don't do the whole glasses thing to tell us that she's a dork, but
She would have had a ponytail then too.
Right. And to me, that there was still this element of wanting to keep her kind of the other version of the American girl or a young American woman, because I don't think that that happened much before the 80s, but I think it's starting to happen around this time that we start to see stronger female characters developing, but they still have a sex appeal to them that keeps them in this category, in my opinion.
When you were talking about how at the end of the movie, Sam and that boy hop in the car and drive off, it felt like it was leaning into a 1950s type trope. And so I'm not quite sure how far this movie is supposed to be leaning into these stereotypes or is subverting them, because seeing them through 21st century lens and having the context of what they're referencing, it feels like a bit of a subversion to me. I don't know what the original intent was. But one thing that I found pretty exciting with the cast of the movie overall is that it really felt a lot more realistic to me on who would survive through the end of the world. Because we don't see teenagers, we don't see young women, and especially ones that have either their nerdy video game personality or the stereotypical American girl where I'm a cheerleader and I'm perky and cute. But so many movies we watch only predict that men will survive. And sometimes there might be a woman who gets to be the award for the male protagonist, but I've never found that to be very realistic, because throughout human civilization, even when catastrophe strikes, women tend to survive. And part of the reason that I found this notable is part of the reason that I collaborate to create the Thunderdomesticity series of photos with an amazing photographer who happens to be my husband. But we create these post-apocalyptic photographs to point out that marginalized people, women, can be survivors. We are survivors. Skills that are often disregarded as women's work are vital for day-to-day survival. So food preparation, caretaking, education, making and mending clothing, healthcare, maintaining a home, record keeping, all of this unseen labor and thankless work is what keeps our civilization going. And I don't understand how most post-apocalyptic narratives think that only smelly dudes with chainsaws will be the survivors. I mean, women and girls and non-binary people can be just as stinky and can also wield weapons, but yes, due to these gendered expectations, feminine people will most likely have skills that can do more than just murder people and take their resources.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on that. It does make me think that, yes, of course, they brought in the guns, the filmmakers brought in the guns and things, but we do have both Regina and Sam, they love to talk back. So they're just strong female characters in that way. I think that speaks to your point about them actually being represented better than I think that they would be in other movies.
Yes, thank you. The two protagonists in this movie were sisters, and they demonstrated they could protect themselves. They figured out how to communicate with others, and they could help those in need. They were able to accomplish all of these things, even though they were, gasp, teenagers. Sarah, what are your thoughts about teenagers and teenage rebellion in this film?
As a former teenage rebel myself, I felt that I could identify just a bit with these rebels, namely Regina, because I was never a cheerleader. I definitely fit more of the nerdy rebel stereotype. But I felt that the teenage rebellion was an important part of this storyline because we see both sisters navigating society and challenging authority. And we see that early on in they're asserting themselves against their stepmother, Regina staying out with her boyfriend, breaking the rules, Samantha asserting herself and saying, I wanted to pretend I ran away, and various other things. Okay, so we have that they're doing their typical teenage rebellion act. I actually felt that this fit a classic storyline of teenage rebellion leading into being a catalyst for becoming an adult. I felt it was really important to the story for that reason.
Perhaps it is good because when people are teenagers and going through all these transitional periods, it can feel like the world is ending, but these characters are actually going through the end of the world, which makes it a notable narrative device.
Yes, I absolutely agree. I do love it as a way to propel the characters forward. However, I didn't love where they ended up.
Yeah. So Reggie and Sam were able to count on each other throughout this story because, in addition to being siblings, they were friends. But Sarah, what did you think of the family dynamics in this film, particularly regarding how it relates to the concept of the nuclear family?
Right. So I will preface my thoughts by saying something kind, which is that the movie did a nice job of including some diversity, racial diversity in the characters. I say that from looking at the movie as an 80s movie. If it was now, we could have a different topic. It would go somewhere else. But for the 80s, the fact that we have Hector, who's, I think, Latino, and then we have the young children being adopted kind of into a new post-apocalyptic nuclear family. And the little girl is, I believe she's Asian. And so I felt like, okay, that's great that they're having this diversity that you don't really see. So I give them kudos for that, the filmmakers. I keep saying them.
Yeah, I did also want to comment on that family unit at the end where you have Reggie and Hector as the parents, and then they have their two children, but they adopted their children. And I rarely see examples of parents adopting non-babies. And so it felt like a more genuine chosen family. And I thought that was notable because I don't see very many portrayals of adoption, let alone parents specifically adopting non-little babies in movies or in real life even. And so this movie was made over 40 years ago, and none of the characters within it batted an eyelash at how it wasn't just like a strictly white family. And I think they get points for that because where I live today, I still encounter people who are angry that interracial marriage exists.
Right. There are those people that get angry about that still to this day. And I know for sure in the 80s that was absolutely still a thing. And so I am glad that you saw that as well. And I know that we both appreciated that. However, I did not like that she went from being an intelligent and fighting young woman who was trying to assert herself into suddenly being in a dress, worried about crossing the street and having a male partner and two little children, and it just fell into this 1950s nuclear family to me, despite the fact that there were different races other than white present. And I really didn't like that. It was very like mom, dad, boy, girl.
It was a very heteronormative ending.
Yes. Oh, it just didn't work for me. I didn't like that ending. I felt like it lost all of Regina's character that they had been working on throughout the whole movie, and why it had to get written in there that she cared so much about waiting at the light when there are no cars crossing. and it's because, I wrote this down. So that the future of civilization is on us and we do not cross against the light. So she's just like this rule following person. All of a sudden she's rule following. She's kind of like this mom. And I'm going, why does she have to do this? Why does she have to fit into this stereotype all of a sudden? Just because she's grown up. And as a woman who has supposedly grown up herself, I really don't like that stereotype. I have a child. I know for a fact that he thinks I don't fit mom stereotype. And so I felt like this was still really pervasive. The nuclear family unit thing just bothered me.
Well, thank you for sharing that because when I saw it, I thought she was picking on the crosswalk light just to pick a fight with her sister.
Oh,
But yeah, she's suddenly a grown up. She has to wear mom clothes.
right.
And so that also brings me back to, are they fulfilling the nuclear family or are they subverting it? Because on one hand, it is mom, dad, and the two kids, and they are dressed like the Brady Bunch. But on the other hand, it's a chosen family, which is something that doesn't get a lot of portrayal.
Right.
There's older adopted children, and so that's subverting it. And so I wonder when they're doing the dress up for the photos, is it just another costume change? I guess it would have been funnier or more poignant if maybe Hector was the one that decided they all had to wear outfits because he loves playing dress up.
Right. Right. And so the fact that they all got dressed up and had these photos, then it makes me just think that they were just adopting this 1950s style American family situation.
Mm-hmm.
I would be really curious to see if they if they could somehow make a sequel all of these years later, because I would like to see what was actually meant by this movie. And the fact that we have the sisters going off into two different directions, I wonder what was really being said there.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the younger sisters, at least to me, obviously heading off to procreate, create little American babies. And then what is this family going to do?
Mm-hmm.
So what are these two different dynamics that are now created? What is that saying about American culture in general? Because I feel like there definitely was a lot being said about gender and race, but I also feel like there was a lot being said about economics, capitalism, materialism, that kind of stuff.
Is there anything else you wanted to discuss before we rate the movie?
That was my biggest thing there.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay.
We'll move on to the Maenad-O-Meter, which is the media metric we'll use to rate the movie. It's inspired by the ancient Greek Maenads who would party in the woods, but would sometimes rip their enemies apart with their bare hands whilst in a state of frenzy. This is why we'll use a scale of 0 to 5 skulls when we evaluate how people of marginalized genders were treated. I want to remind everyone listening, we strive to make our ratings independent of if we like the film or if we thought it was successful. If the narrative included a diverse cast and treated them well, then this movie could earn a high score. However, if there weren't many feminine characters or they were treated poorly, then it shall earn a low score. Before we reveal our ratings, I want to remind our friends that it's okay if we disagree. Do you mind if I share mine first?
I would love to hear yours.
I'm going to give this movie 3.5 skulls. I'm surprised that I'm giving this movie such a high score, but that's because I was surprised how well the feminine characters were treated overall. However, I couldn't give it a perfect score because there were some very big noticeable flaws. This movie is extremely heteronormative, but the worst part is when Sam drops a slur when the sisters are discussing Hector. Regardless, this movie's protagonists were young women. Not only did these feminine characters exist, but they had different personalities. They were resourceful, funny, and tough. The feminine characters weren't brutalized too much more than the masculine characters. The worst was when the stepmother punched the younger sister and when the zombie cops were attacking Sam as well. So Sam had some ridiculous costumes in this movie, but I think Hector's were equally silly, except Sam was the only one shown in her underwear.
Right.
I suppose I should just be thankful she wasn't shown completely topless. But I'm afraid movies have broken my expectations. However, overall, I appreciate the diversity in the cast and that the feminine characters were important and relatable. So Sarah, using a scale of 0 to 5 skulls, how would you rate Night of the Comet on the Maenad-O-Meter?
Night of the Comet exploded my mind. And it continues to, as I mentioned to you, I think I need to rewatch this movie because I cannot figure it out. I can't decide if I love it or I hate it. And might be a little bit of both. I give this movie a 3. So very close to you. I really felt that the characters, while fairly diverse for the 80s, again, there were females as leads that weren't totally nude and things like that. I still felt like there was a lot of sexualization. What I would love to see is a woman in her 80s taking over. Something like that. I mean, not that you can't be 80 and sexy, but let's venture away from the youthful woman thing. I think that would be really fantastic. So, yes, I give it a 3. And I think that if I could gather up the funding for the sequel, I would like to give my sequel that I could help create. What do you think? Should we get in on this?
Oh my goodness, you're such a great writer. I would love to see you do a screenplay.
Yeah, and then you can do the art. It'll be a whole thing.
I want to be the 80-year-old lady in it.
Oh, yes. Oh, I love it. Oh, I love it. Oh, we'll get Aaron in on this and everything. And then we'll even bump the rating up even higher. We'll have so much.
Yeah.
It'll be fantastic. But so the 80s version gets a 3.
Thank you so much for sharing. Because I love learning what my friends think about the movies I watch, I ask everyone to join me at the Unaccredited College of Klaire over at Patreon so they can contribute to this show by rating the movies too. There wasn't a strong consensus this time, but the amazing people at UCK gave the film an average of 3.25 skulls, which is wild because it's just perfectly between what you and I thought.
Oh my goodness.
They're really smart over there.
How smart we are then too.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for taking the time to discuss Night of the Comet with me.
Oh, it was absolutely my pleasure. I hope to discuss more movies with you. And of course, our upcoming sequel to be announced maybe 30 or 40 years from now when we're old enough to star in it.
Yes.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
Oh, that'll be perfect. But before I let you go, Sarah, I truly want to guide our friends to connect with you on Instagram. They can find you by looking up S. Isak-Goode, which is spelled S.ISAK_GOODE. Sarah, you're a wonderful writer. I appreciate your academic curiosity, and I'm so happy you were able to join me on the show.
This was absolutely wonderful, so entertaining, and I love talking with you. You always have such amazing insights. So thank you. I would like to mention that if people do find me on Instagram, there are other ways to connect with me. That's probably just the fastest and easiest way. And again, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you and everything that you do.
Oh, I appreciate you. So thank you. Femininity in the Post-Apocalypse is part of the Unaccredited College of Klaire. Is it a real art school? Is it simply my academia-themed Patreon page? Only you can determine this for yourself, so you better stop what you're doing and head to patreon.com/Klaire Lockheart. Regardless of the conclusion you draw, I am the founder of UCK, which means that I have the power to bestow honorary degrees upon the most amazing people. My friends, I am thrilled to introduce you to the current recipient of the Honorary Doctor of Dystopian Studies degree, which is perfect because she's already part of the Dystopian Studies department at the Unaccredited College of Klaire. Jamie R. Waters has had many jobs, but her most important job involved creating and raising a human child. She is also a supportive spouse who can manage household chaos, and she's a volunteer docent at the McNay Art Museum in San Antonio, which is the first modern art museum in Texas. Jamie also embroiders reproductions of art while listening to 19th century English Romance literature, and you can see some of Jamie's work on Instagram. Just search for Jamie W77, and that's spelled JAMIEW77. IEW77. Welcome to the show, Dr. Jamie R. Waters.
Thank you. I am so honored.
I am honored, but I was hoping you could tell us a little bit more about your work at the museum.
Well, I am a new-ish docent. I started in 2023 and we had a pretty intense training and I met a wonderful group of people. And we're all just working together to be a part of the museum. And it's my first volunteer experience. So I'm learning so much about not only about art and about the collection at the McNay, but also about the personalities that go into volunteering and being a docent at the museum.
Now, I'm sure we have some of our friends listening who don't know what a docent is. Do you mind explaining what your job is?
Sure. A docent is somebody that will guide tours. Usually it's school children. So it'll be anywhere from elementary to high school to college sometimes. And we take them through the museum, and sometimes we'll have a theme that we work with. Other times it's just sort of docent choice. And we just bring them around and tell them what we can about the art and about the museum.
That's incredible. And with your experience at the McNay, has that impacted the artwork, the embroidery that you create?
A little bit. I did some reproduction of José Guadalupe Posada. He's the one that created the Catarina, the skull with the great big hat. And it's a woodcut print that he usually creates, or he did create. And he did these sort of posters that were very political in a sense. And so trying to reproduce that with stitches sort of gave me a lot of time to think about how the work was done originally. And it gave me a huge appreciation for sure.
Oh, yeah, I can only imagine. Now, Jamie, I'm so happy that we've been able to connect online. And I also want to thank you for suggesting that I watch Night of the Comet for this podcast.
Yeah, that was a staple sort of for a while in my youth, because I would come home from school and nobody was around. And I was fortunate enough to have HBO. So I don't even remember if I watched the entire movie in one sitting. I would get snippets here and there, but every time it came on, it was just so fun. Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Oh, thank you. I also know you have a lot of responsibilities, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. This is why I won't make you deliver a long speech in order to receive your honorary degree. Instead, I'm going to ask you 5 quick questions so our friends listening get to learn more about you.
I am ready.
To kick us off, what is your favorite dystopian movie franchise?
Hands down, my favorite movie is Alien, and subsequently all of the Alien movies after. I guess the first one hit me with just the darkness and the moodiness of it and the fear that it sort of induced. I love scary movies, and that was a pretty scary movie, so.
Did you want to share anything more about the character Ripley or the themes that came through in this franchise?
Yes, definitely. Ripley is a badass warrior woman. She's just trying to, take care of things once the captain, spoilers, I guess, who hasn't seen this, right? Once the captain is gone and she's put in charge, and it's just like, she just sort of takes everything with this, the kind of calmness that I would like to be able to emulate if I'm ever put in a situation like that, right?
Well, I hope you won't have to battle chest bursting aliens and drifting through space.
Yeah, of course, that introduced me to Giger sort of world, and that in and of itself is a whole thing, right? You probably can't see, but my husband has a toy version from the 70s of the alien monster.
Wow.
It ended up in the attic of his parents' home, and he had been thinking about it for so long. He finally rescued it. And it still is in pretty good condition. So anyway, yeah, the whole artwork of H.R. Giger was something that fascinated me. And like just this working class sort of, these people are just out there just trying to earn a living and then get caught up in this whole working for the company to bring back this horrible thing that's just going to destroy everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And how it is down to just her. And she saves the cat, so that's always a good thing.
Definitely. Well, thank you for sharing, Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
My second question is, if given access to enough caffeine, what skills do you have that would be helpful in a post-apocalyptic situation?
Well, I do have ADHD, and sometimes my husband says it's either my greatest talent or my worst, personality trait. Given enough stimulant, I can pretty much organize closets. That's a big thing for me. Organize your kitchen cabinets. I will keep things in proper order. Make sure it's alphabetized too.
Oh, that's a great skill to have. Next, would you rather fight one hummingbird the size of an ostrich or 10 ostriches the size of hummingbirds?
Oh, definitely the 10 ostriches the size of hummingbirds because hummingbirds are vicious. They are territorial and they can be very vicious. I mean, they're cute as hell, but I have had hummingbird feeders that I've had to separate by many yards so that they don't dive bomb each other. So I would rather take on 10 tiny ostriches. I think they'd be okay.
I didn't know hummingbirds attacked each other.
Yeah, they're vicious little beasts. Mm-hmm. And they're fast.
My next question is, have you ever inherited something that would be useful if society collapses?
Yes, I actually brought it out here. It's my old can of buttons in the Old South hard candy dainties tin. That was my grandma's. And it actually still smells like grandma. It smells weird, funky, like powder. It could smell worse. So I guess that's not bad. But I do have several buttons. So I could fix buttons. I could embroider a cute thing over a hole in a shirt. I'm there.
Those are incredibly valuable skills.
Yes.
Finally, what advice would you like to share with us?
Given the times that we're in right now, I'm drinking a lot more. So take your whatever beverage of choice and see it as half full because this is going to pass. Things may look dark now, but eventually we'll have to come together. And I just sort of have to keep hold of my optimism. And humanity's been pretty much horrible with each other for thousands of years. And we're still here. I had to stop listening to the news and stuff. So that's why I started listening to audiobooks and things like that. So do whatever you have to do to keep your mental health, keep yourself right.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
You're welcome.
And I have to thank you once again for joining us, Dr. Jamie.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you. Femininity in the Post-Apocalypse was created and edited by me, Klaire Lockheart. Because nothing in this world makes sense, so I might as well figure out a way to have fun and connect with others during the apocalypse. If you enjoy this show and want to see what other shenanigans I've been up to, find me at clairelockhart.com, which is spelled KLAIRELOCKHEART.com. I also want to thank Aaron C. Packard of Aaron C. Packard Productions for providing the voiceover work and my recording equipment. Please visit aaronpackard.com to see his artwork, and that's aaronpackard.com. Finally, I have to share that I am saving the best for last. Thank you, my friends. I really appreciate that you're listening because it makes all this work worthwhile. I hope you'll be back to join me for the next episode.